I have served 3 war queens in my life, and I thought I understood the shape of conquest before Yenna, Korashivel, brought her human husband into the captured hall at Drensfeld and set him in the corner like luggage. My name does not matter here. I was her second advisor, the one who carried the ledgers and counted the dead, and I am the one who watched this happen, so I will tell it the way I wrote it down that night, while it was still raw enough to get right. We had taken the fortress in 11 hours. Yenna's banners were already up over the gate towers, and the great hall still smelled of the smoke that had cleared it of its old garrison. She sat at the head table with her boots on the polished stone, and she had him, Tomas, she called him, never anything grander, stand near the wall with the captured staff officers and the camp clerks, as if he belonged among the spoils rather than the family. He did not protest the placement. That was the first thing I noticed and did not understand. He was an older man by any measure that mattered to her people, gray through a dark beard, a permanent stoop in one shoulder from some old injury, hands cracked and scarred the way a man's hands get from 40 years of work that was never gentle. He wore plain travel clothes, no rank markings, nothing that announced him. When the Korashi officers laughed about him, and they did, openly, in front of her, he simply went on mending a torn strap on an old satchel with a bone needle, as though the laughter were weather and he had already decided not to mind weather. "Tell me again," General War Aidensave said to her, loud enough to carry, "why the Ascendancy's conqueror keeps a tame thing in her tent instead of a consort fit for the banners." Yenna did not look up from the captured maps. "He keeps himself," she said, which was not quite a defense, and everyone in the hall heard that it wasn't. I want to be honest about what I believed that night. I believed War was right, in the crude way he meant it. I had seen Yenna take 3 systems in 4 years through sheer relentlessness, through a will that did not bend for grief or counsel or the pleading of conquered courts. She did not seem like a woman who had chosen a soft thing to keep beside her. It looked, from where I stood with my ledgers, like an old habit she had not yet broken, something she had picked up on a backwater world during the long campaign and never set down, the way some commanders keep a stray dog. Earlier that same evening I had watched one of the junior officers, a boy barely past his oaths, set a cup of something foul in front of Tomas as a dare, the kind of joke a court plays on something it has decided cannot be insulted because it does not understand the insult. Tomas drank it without comment, set the cup down, and asked the boy mildly whether the local wine was always brewed that strong or whether this batch had simply been an unlucky one. The boy did not know what to do with an answer that refused to be wounded. He laughed too loudly and walked away, and I remember thinking it was the laugh of someone covering for having lost a contest he had not realized he was in. I had also seen Yenna watch that exchange from across the hall, her expression unreadable, and say nothing. I assumed then that her silence was simply the practiced indifference of a woman who had learned not to spend authority on small things. I did not yet understand that she was watching him the way you watch a door you have walked past 100 times without ever once trying the handle. It was past the second watch when the assassin came. He came through the servants' passage behind the head table, one of Drensfeld's own household guard, still loyal to a deposed line, with a thin ceremonial blade he had no business still carrying. He was fast, and he was close, and he was past 2 of Yenna's own guards before either of them had finished turning. Tomas did not shout a warning. He did not draw a weapon, because he was not wearing one. Her court had not thought to arm the pet. He stepped between the blade and her chair with the unhurried economy of a man closing a door, caught the assassin's wrist in one scarred hand, turned it a quarter turn the way you'd turn a key that didn't want to turn, and the blade came free into his other palm before the man had finished understanding that he'd been stopped. He did not kill him. He held the assassin's wrist until 2 of the actual guards arrived, handed the blade to the nearest one hilt first, said something too quiet for the hall to hear. I only caught the end of it later when I asked the guard directly. He told the man he was sorry it had come to that for him. Then Tomas went back to the wall, picked up the satchel and the bone needle, and resumed the stitch he'd left hanging. The hall had gone entirely silent. War-Aidensave, who had been loudest of all of them an hour before, did not say a word now. He simply stared at the wrist lock, replaying it, the way a man replays something his eyes told him that his understanding has not yet caught up to. It was Yenna's face I was watching because that was my work to read her, to know what she needed before she asked for it. I have seen her face do many things. I have seen it set itself like stone before a siege, and I have seen it go flat and unreadable at a death toll. I had never seen it do what it did then, which was simply open. The conqueror's mask coming off the way a held breath finally goes, and underneath it's something that looked almost like fear, except it wasn't aimed at the assassin at all. She rose. She crossed the hall herself, past the staff officers, past War, past everyone who outranked the wall Tomas had been standing against, and she went and crouched beside him while he was still threading the needle, as if the last few minutes had not happened, as if she needed something ordinary to hold on to. "You let them call you that," she said, not loud. I had to lean to hear it. "For 4 years, you let them say it to my face, and you never once told me what you actually were." "You never asked what I actually was," he said. "You asked if I'd come with you. I said yes. That's all I signed up to be, yours, not theirs to understand." "Where did you learn that?" She nodded toward the door, toward the place the blade had been. "That wasn't luck." 20 years escorting survey crews through country that wanted them dead," he said. "You get good at making sure the people around you don't notice how close it came. It's not a story I tell at banquets." I do not think she had ever once, in 4 years, asked him what his life had been before hers. I do not think it had occurred to her that there was a before, that the quiet man at the edge of her camp had been forged somewhere she'd never thought to look, and had simply chosen, every single day since, not to spend that on anyone. Not on her enemies, not on her court, not even on her, until the moment her life required it and there was no one else standing close enough to give it. "They call your kind weak," she said. "Soft. I let them. I told myself it didn't matter what fools said. I did not understand I was protecting nothing, that you needed no protecting from me at all." "I didn't need defending," he agreed. "I needed you to come find a quiet corner of this hall eventually and ask. That's the part I was waiting on." She did not answer that the way a queen answers, with a decree, with a public correction issued from the head table. She stayed crouched beside him on the floor of a fortress she'd taken that morning, and she put her hand flat over the half-mended strap, over his scarred hand, and she held it there while the hall watched her do it, saying nothing, asking him for nothing else. Later, I heard War-Aidensave tell another officer, low and chastened, that even gods fear his kind, the kind that never needs you to know what they are until the one moment it counts, and never once asks for the credit after. I write this down because I was the one standing close enough to see her face change, and because I think it matters that it was not a blade or a banner or a conquest that did it. It was a man going back to mending a strap after saving her life, as though that, too, were simply Tuesday's work, and a queen finally crouching down to his level to ask the question she should have asked 4 years and 3 systems ago. I have served 3 war queens in my life, and I have watched courts kneel for armies and for bloodlines and for thrones taken at terrible cost. I had never once watched a court go quiet for a man mending a strap. It is the only conquest I have ever recorded that nobody bled for, and it is the one I remember best. She has not let him stand at the wall since.